Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 245, Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday in the fight capital, Las Vegas, Nevada. 3 title fights on the line for the UFC's last pay-per-view of the year.
I've been waiting for this card for a long time. It's not all the time we get blessed with 3 title fights, and then the caliber of fighters on this card. I mean, you got about 5 or 6 fights that could headline fight nights on their own. Petr, Marlon, Moraes, Faber's on this card as well. So, I mean, it's a stacked card from top to bottom, and I'm excited, man.
Well, you just said the word blessed, and in the co-main event, you got the man named Max Blessed Holloway trying to defend his title one more time, trying to extend that record, and he's got a very tough challenge ahead of him here in Alexander Volkanovski.
100%, man. This is possibly Max's toughest test to date at 145. I know that he lost earlier this year to Dustin Poirier at 155, but now at 145, a weight class where I think he's put away 13 people in a row. You got to think this might be his toughest test. Volkanovski 23-1. His last 3 fights, he's been looking better and better. It's definitely a step up in competition, and let's see how it goes.
And in the featured bout, which is also a title fight between Amanda Nunes and Germaine de Randamie, a lot of people don't know, but they've actually met once before in the past, very long time ago, before both of them even got a chance to touch gold. Now they meet with 135-pound gold on the line.
Yeah, this is a rematch. I think they fought maybe 6 years ago. Amanda Nunes got the first-round finish. I know she's looking to repeat that. And Germaine coming off that 16-second knockout over Aspen Ladd, who just won her last fight. So it's a good fight. Amanda Nunes, the greatest of all time female fighter. So I'm interested to see how she performs.
I mean, when you look at the resume of a young lady like Amanda Nunes, you're talking about finishes over Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg, even the opponent she's fighting this Saturday, Germaine de Randamie, Miesha Tate. So a second win over Germaine de Randamie is only going to elevate her GOAT status that much more.
Yeah, 100%. Germaine is right up under Amanda in terms of the biggest threats out there in the female fighting game. And Germaine is a big opportunity. Let's not forget she has the opportunity to also become a champion in 2 different divisions as well. So
not simultaneous, but still a great accomplishment nonetheless. And I'm very excited to talk about this whole card. Got to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Flav CBD. Make sure you guys go to flavcbd.com. Use that promo code BATTLE to save 10% off any purchase. Flav is the official THC and CBD sponsor of Half the Battle. So check them out at flavcbd.com and use that promo code BATTLE to save 10%. And Shaq, let's get right down to business because first up in the middleweight division, we got Oskar Piechota. He's 11-2, and Punahele Soriano is 6-0. Currently, they got Oskar Piechota minus 120. The comeback on Punahele Soriano is plus 100. Well, Shaq, as you remember, Oskar Piechota was once considered a prospect at middleweight. He came into the UFC with an undefeated record. He's a Robert Drysdale black belt.
Cage Warriors champ.
Yeah, the whole bit. Unfortunately, took 2 back-to-back setbacks. You think he gets back on track here against the tough Hawaiian and All-American wrestler Soriano?
Yeah, this is a great fight to open up the card. Both these guys are finishers. Punahele, I think he was 5-0 or 6-0 going into his Contender Series fight against Jamie Pickett. And, I mean, he dominated that fight, got a 30-26 scorecard. I mean, was it the first round KO that everyone was expecting, that the highlight reel that he has on his local scene? But, hey, he fought the best guy that he ever fought before and still dominated him. So I think the Punahele cardio issues, I don't want to say are overblown, but against a guy like Oskar Piechota, when you look at his 2 UFC wins, Jonathan Wilson, I mean, that guy's not UFC caliber. And Tim Williams, not UFC caliber either. So, and then when he stepped up in competition against Meerschaert, he started off that fight really well, dropped Meerschaert, took him down, had him in some bad spots. Meerschaert does put himself in bad spots from time to time. And Piechota completely gassed out when he got pushed, and he took a beating. I mean, that fight could have got stopped on several different occasions. I mean, I think he took a lot more damage than he was expecting and that he needed to take, and then he takes that fight against another 5-0 guy, a jiu-jitsu guy, Vieira. But, we thought Piechota was a black belt himself. He thought he could the Drysdale black belt could handle himself a little better, but he didn't, man. He got completely wiped out. So now he's fighting Punahele. I think Punahele's the faster, stronger, younger guy. I think if Punahele keeps his fight at distance, I think he's going to look a lot better. I think he's got that explosiveness to touch a guy like Oskar up. I don't think Oskar has the best chin. I mean, even in that Tim Williams fight where he got that knockout, I mean, some of those exchanges were real 50-50. I mean, he was wobbling a little bit. And I think that he's got a suspect chin, and I think Punahele comes out here and gets a first-round knockout. So I'll go with Punahele.
Man, this is one hell of a fight because obviously when you talk about Oskar Piechota, like we already alluded to, he's got the black belt under Robert Drysdale. He's got knockout power as well, as you saw in the Tim Williams fight. And even his regional fight right before his UFC debut knocked some guy out in 30 seconds. So skill-wise, Oskar Piechota ain't that bad. He can knock guys out. He can tap guys out. I've seen him win decisions. So in terms of the skill, kid's pretty good. But where I have an issue with Oskar Piechota is the confidence. And I don't want to question the guy's heart. He's very tough, but I don't think he's got that mean streak in him, man. It seems like he kind of backs up in all of his fights. And if you're not as skilled as he is, he can go out there and put you away. But if you got some kind of heart in you, if you're a very tough fighter, if you're born in an island called Hawaii, you might have what it takes to come out here and beat Oskar Piechota. Not to mention this kid Punahele Soriano. People act like he's some brawler, but he's actually a D3 All-American wrestler. So he definitely has something in his back pocket if things aren't going according to plan on the feet. But on the feet, I think things will go according to plan because this kid is a very explosive southpaw. And I know you guys remember when I called Brad Tavares Hawaiian Bisbing. Well, this kid is a Hawaiian Vitor Belfort with wrestling. Very explosive from that southpaw stance, throws punches and bunches, and when he gets you hurt and he starts to tee off on someone, it could be over shortly after because his flurries are on point. He has knockout power, and most importantly, he's got that Hawaiian warrior spirit, that will to win. And I think that if this fight hits the trenches, Punahele Soriano is definitely going to show off his well-rounded skill set here. Just has to avoid, little moments such as not letting the black belt take his back, don't get caught with a big punch. And I think as long as those things don't happen, Punahele Soriano is either going to win by knockout or by decision. So I'm going with the Hawaiian here as well. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got Jessica Ai. She's 14-7, and Viviane Araujo is 8-1. Currently, they got Viviane Araujo minus 185. The comeback on Jessica Ai is plus 160. Well, I'm going to take this one first, Shaq, and just go right off the bat and say that Jessica Ai, in her last fight, she challenged for a title, which, I believe it was the co-main event of the evening. Now she's second fight of the evening. This is definitely a big step down in the card. And in a way, it's a step down in competition as well. But what I want to say about Jessica Ai is that, look, the skill set is on point. Even though there are a lot of openings in terms of she keeps her chin in the air. She's been doing that her entire career. You guys saw Viviane Araujo in that UFC debut throwing some big overhand rights. And I believe those are going to be a big weapon here against Jessica Ai. But the most important thing I want to say about Jessica Ai is that she's what I like to consider a streaky fighter. She's not going to win one, lose one. What she's going to do is win 3, then lose 4, then, win 2, lose 2. So right now, she's on that cold streak. That means she's about to take a couple L's back-to-back, and I think now's the time to capitalize. So I'm going to go with Viviane Araujo in this spot. I think that her movement is going to be too much for Jessica Ai, and Jessica still hasn't fixed that issue where she doesn't move her head off that center line, Shaq, and when you're dealing with someone that throws big overhands such as Viviane Araujo, I do think that's recipe for a knockdown. I do think that's recipe to eat big shots. So whether she gets the knockout or not, I still think Viviane's going to land the harder shots, and I think she's going to go out there and break the will of Jessica Ai. So I see Viviane Araujo coming out here and getting her 3rd UFC victory.
I think Viviane Araujo is a great prospect at 125. I bet on her last fight against Alexis Davis, who was number 7 at the time. And it was more so to Alexis Davis is kind of real slow, gets hit a lot on a L streak. He makes some good points about Ai being streaky. I definitely think Ai's the best chick Viviane's fought. I think Ai's a lot better of an athlete than Alexis Davis or Toledo Bernardo. I think Viviane's got some good movement, but in that fight with Alexis Davis, there were some times where she the way that she was coming out so early with that movement, she kind of was slowing down in the late rounds, and she might be able to slide through against a slow aging competitor like Alexis Davis. But against Jessica Ai, it's definitely going to be a tougher test. Ai does have good striking, a good right hand, some good wrestling. So I think it's the toughest test. I think Araujo's got the skills to definitely pass this. You don't know how Ai's going to react coming off that vicious KO against Valentina. She was out unconscious for a very, very long time. And sometimes when we see these girls take those vicious KO losses like that, man, they just don't have it anymore. So I do think it's kind of a perfect timing thing for Viviane. But for the skill department, I think it's a step up in competition. I do think I might have some advantages in the fight, but I'll take Viviane. But I don't want to say it's a dog or pass situation just because Ai's coming off this vicious KO loss, but at this point, I think there's not much value on Araujo.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got Brandon Moreno. He's 15-5, and Kai Kara France is 20-7. Currently, they got Kai Kara France minus 165. The comeback on Brandon Moreno is plus 145. Shaq, a lot of people think that Brandon Moreno got the short end of the stick in his last fight. I think he might have deserved to get his arm raised against Akhmedov. Now he's got a chance here against the undefeated UFC prospect. He's lost in the past, but not inside the octagon. Kai Kara France, who comes out of City Kickboxing. You obviously know Israel Adesanya, Alex Volkanovski, all the great fighters they have there. You think France is going to come out here and keep the win streak alive for City Kickboxing, or you see Brandon Moreno getting back on track?
Yeah, it's a great fight. I like the flyweights, man. So both these guys were on the same season of Tough, the Henry Benavidez season. They both lost to Pantoja. Both of them kind of went on their different paths. I mean, after the show, Kai Kara France didn't even get a contract. He had to go back to the local scene, go back and get wins. Moreno got that short notice call against Smoka, beat Ortiz, and was a top 10 flyweight for a long time there. But the way he lost against Sergio and Pantoja, I mean, it seemed like he got completely blown out the water and that he kind of looked chaotic at times, so they cut him when the flyweight division was kind of dissolving. And he looked good against the undefeated Russian Akhmedov, who's a scrambler. I think Kai Kara France has got way better stand-up than Akhmedov. I think Akhmedov has a good fight with Tim Elliott. I think that's going to be a good fight. But I think that Moreno definitely looked a lot better, definitely was operating better. He's very tricky on the ground. Kai Kara France, this ground game's still a little bit of a work in progress, but we saw in his last fight it's getting better. I mean, he slammed Mark De La Rosa with the single leg, stuffed him pretty much all his takedowns. Kai Kara France is getting better. I respect him for that Paiva fight down there in New Zealand. I mean, that was a war. I actually bet on Paiva in that fight, thinking Kai Kara France maybe not didn't have the heart to get through a fight like that, but hey, he got through it. I feel like the kid's making significant gains fight to fight. I think he's got the higher ceiling than Moreno, but I think Moreno, from a betting perspective, does kind of present some challenges. He's just a tough, gritty Mexican that, you know, if this does become a dogfight, maybe he can make Kai Kara France resort to some old tendencies. But I think that Kai Kara France is significantly the better puncher, and I think that if he keeps his fight standing, he can win this fight by landing the harder shot, so I'll pick him to win.
Man, it's going to be one hell of a matchup. I cannot wait. Obviously, Brandon Moreno is really known for his submission grappling, his scrambles, and this guy goes out there and gets on top of you. You might not get back up the rest of that round. Also, same thing if he takes your back. So Kai Kara France has to come out here and be the sharpest version of himself that he's ever been so far in his UFC career. And I got to tell you what, this kid Kai Kara France is extremely talented, man. I've been very impressed with his UFC run. Obviously, we faded him against Paiva at that plus 200 something line, and it was a very close decision. Could have gone either way, but since that point, you saw his subsequent fight. The guy's going out there putting in work, and the biggest asset that he brings to the table, besides his well-rounded skill set, is how about that knockout power, man? That kid, for a flyweight, he hits extremely hard, and when he touches these guys on the chin, they tend to go down. So it's going to be a great dynamic to see Kai Kara France trying to keep this fight standing while Brandon Moreno tries to create scrambles, tries to take his back, tries to force him to take a bad shot, capitalize on his neck that way. So I do think it's going to be one hell of a fight, and it might actually be a dog or pass situation at the betting window. But as a pure pick, I'm leaning more towards the favorite, Kai Kara France, man. I think he's the more well-rounded guy. I'm not going to say he's the more seasoned guy because they're both pretty damn experienced fighters, but it seems at this point that Kai Kara France has more avenues and more areas to win, so I'm going to pick him for that reason. But it's not going to surprise me one bit if Brandon Moreno goes out there, takes his back, chokes him out, or keeps him down on the ground for a decision, but my pick will be Kai Kara France in this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got Daniel Teymur. He's 7-3, and Chase Hooper is 8-0. Currently, they got Chase Hooper minus 115 and Daniel Teymur is minus 105. Well, Shaq, you got the teenage dream, Chase Hooper, trying to keep that undefeated record alive against David's brother, Daniel Teymur.
This is a great fight. The main event of the Fight Pass prelims, Chase Hooper, we saw him at 18 years old on Dana White's Contender Series against a tough Hawaiian kid. And, man, it was an ugly fight, and I'm glad they put him in the local scene after that, because if they would have put him in the UFC, he would have got completely dominated. But now we see him, even after that fight, man, he went to a draw with a 7-8 guy on the local scene. But then he got a win over Luis Gomez, who did beat Sadiq Youssef. So
in the first round.
So that's his. He's got one solid win. Kid's definitely still developing. Daniel Teymur, on the other hand, we know his brother's really good. His brother beat Jakar and beat Nick Lentz and Lando Venata and some other guys, but we know that his big brother is definitely not on that level. He's 1-3. Definitely fought some tough competition though, guys that Chase Hooper can't even breathe the air. Chris Fishgold, I mean, yeah, he's a little shaky in the UFC, but he's like 18 and 3. Julio Arce is a legit fighter, and Danny Henry, who tapped out Hakeem Dawodu in less than 30 seconds. So I think that Daniel Teymur's definitely probably fought tougher competition, but the thing is, you can't trust a guy like Teymur because he just does stupid shit from time to time, aka going for leg locks against Chris Fishgold when he has him hurt. But the one common thing in all of his fights is, except the Julio Arce fight, is that he did put Fishgold and Danny Henry in some tough situations on the feet. He definitely cracked both of them. He definitely wobbled them, and Chase Hooper's definitely hittable. The thing is, if this fight is the mat, ain't no telling what Daniel Teymur's gonna do. He's probably gonna do something stupid and end up getting tapped out. But Chase Hooper is definitely getting better. But a few months back, he did go to draw with the 7-8 guy. I gotta go with Chase Hooper. I think that he's gonna probably look better. Kid's probably putting on more size, becoming more of a man. But I'm not convinced that he's going to eat Teymur's right hand early on in that fight. And Teymur, like I said, has had success against a lot of guys on the feet. So I'll take Chase Hooper, but I think this is a straight pass fight betting-wise, like on both sides.
Hey, guys, it's not David Teymur. It's the shitty Teymur.
I mean, Teymur should honestly be like 6-4 because one of his wins against Amir Gyumbi on the local scene, I mean, he got knocked out and Florida ref stopped the fight, but then I guess the Teymur brothers got some type of pool down there in Sweden, and they reversed it and let the kid get submitted. So
ref waves the fight off, and Daniel Teymur's like, "What the fuck, man?" So then ref's like, "Just kidding, keep fighting."
Go ahead.
The guy that was already celebrating on the cage, they had to pull him back down. Then he gets submitted. It was.
Remember Fabio Maldonado versus Fedor when the ref completely saved Fedor, and
remember when the ref gave Fedor a timeout in the Maldonado fight? Are you okay, Fedor? You take a breather? All right, keep fighting. No one saw, right? So, yeah, look, as far as his matchup is concerned, I fucking love it, man, because on paper it is striker versus grappler, and this kid, Chase Hooper, what he brings to the table. Look, if you just watch his Contender Series fight, you might be asking yourself, why is he in the UFC? But what you really need to understand is that, he was 18 years old in that fight or something, Shaq? Now he's about 21, so I know 3 years, 2 years, this whole thing doesn't seem like a lot, but with a kid that age... Oh, he's only 20? So 2 years doesn't really seem like a lot, but for a kid that age, it's a fucking hell of a lot because when you're developing into becoming a man, every single year counts for a lot. Every single year he makes more leaps and bounds, not just in his skill set, but in his maturity. I mean, the guy's filling out his frame. You watch that fight on Contender Series, and then you watch his fight against Luis Gomez, is not even the same guy. So what I like about Hooper a lot is obviously his jiu-jitsu. Very confident brown belt, and what's most impressive about him is how flexible this kid is. He's very long for the weight class, but when he gets on the mat, and I'm talking about off his back, not just when he's on top. When he's on top, he dominates these guys. But look, the kid is 6'1" at featherweight. He's got a 75-inch reach. And when he's on the bottom, he starts twisting in ways that you've never seen before, starts sweeping guys. And when he gets on top, he's got vicious ground and pound. He can set up his submissions. If you see that fight against Luis Gomez is a very tough guy. Luis Gomez is a guy that fought Dan Ige on Contender Series. Luis Gomez is a former Titan FC world champion. Luis Gomez is a guy that finished Sodiq Yusuff in the first round. And Chase Hooper went out there and mopped the floor with him in a way where they had to take him off the developmental deal, and they put him right into the UFC. They're like, okay, this kid's ready for prime time. He's ready for the big show. Now let's bring him a hand-picked opponent and see how he deals with it. Now the thing with Daniel Teymur is he definitely throws heat in that first round, and if you're not quite up to par, if you go out there and you pull a Sung Bin Joe, then he might go out there and beat you. But I think this kid Hooper only needs one good back take, one good takedown pass to mount, and the fight will be over shortly after. So while I think that Daniel Teymur might go out there and tee off on him early, he's got to finish Hooper to win this fight. If he doesn't finish Hooper, he will be finished himself. I'm going Chase Hooper to win this fight inside the distance, either by ground and pound TKO or by submission. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Matt Brown. He's 21-16, and Ben Saunders is 22-12. Currently, they got Matt Brown minus 345. The comeback on Ben Saunders is plus 285. Well, Shaq, I know Ben Saunders gets knocked out every single fight, but would you recommend laying minus 345 on a guy that retired 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's a great fight. Ben Saunders, we know his chin is completely shot. He's been taking KOLs on the reg. Does have a finish win over Jake Ellenberger, the guy that beat Matt Brown in the mix in between there. So you can't forget about that. And like you said, Matt ain't been looking good too lately. I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, let's not forget his old days, the old Matt Brown, where he was kind of under 500 there for a stretch, but then seemed to revive his career. But maybe resorted back to his old jobber ways. I mean, definitely beat Tim Means, but I think he's, 2-5 in his last 7? Fought some of the top competition out there. Ben Saunders...
Also 2-5 in his last 7.
Also 2-5 in his last 7. So you can't really think these guys are too far apart. Obviously, Ben can't take much of a punch. It's only gonna... But Ben still has heart, man. Ben still will throw. I mean, Ben kicks hard. And what has Matt Brown's weakness always been? He's got a soft body there. And he's been hurt to the body. I mean, I can count, a bunch of times, man. So I think that Ben Saunders does have a path to victory if he can somehow get Matt in a plum and just stay conscious enough, long enough for him to get a knee off. Because, Jake Ellenberger put him down with one single body kick. He's just been hurt to the body several times. Eric Silva almost finished him, but I don't know if he's going to be able to come back. I got to pick Matt Brown. I lean, but I think, I don't want to say it's a dog or pass situation, but I just would not, play Matt Brown. You don't know what this guy's been up to. Ben Saunders has been a little bit more relevant. At least he's been fighting. You know what I'm saying? But I'll take Matt Brown. But I would not be shocked if Ben Saunders knocked him out in the first round with body shots.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of both these guys, especially back in the day. Matt Brown used to be one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC in the welterweight division. But he's coming off a 2-year layoff where he retired his last fight.
Matt Brown's 21-16.
Look, one guy gets knocked out every single fight, Ben Saunders, and the other guy has an extremely weak body. And I know Matt Brown doesn't like to hear that, but I don't give a fuck what Matt Brown likes to hear. The guy called me out because I said the Aspen lad, Germaine Randamie stoppage was perfectly justified because we all know that if they didn't stop it, Aspen would have eaten 3 or 4 punches and been unconscious, so thank God the ref stopped it when they did. But that being said,
I want to see Aspen Land get killed on it was a just
that being said, look, is it going to be Ben Saunders via body kick or knee, or is it going to be Matt Brown via KO? I don't know. I certainly ain't laying minus 345 to find out. If you take a 1-unit shot on Ben Saunders, I don't blame you, because all he's got to do is kick him in the body one time or knee him. But it's like, at the same time, don't get your chin touched, Ben. So who knows what's going to happen. I just think that in their primes, Matt Brown was the much better fighter. And they're not in their primes anymore, so who knows if that holds any weight. But the best version of both guys, I take Matt Brown via first-round knockout. So we'll see how it actually plays out on Saturday night. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got Ian Heinisch. He's 13-2, and Omari Akhmedov is 19-4. Currently, they got Ian Heinisch minus 140. The comeback on Omari Akhmedov is plus 120. Well, Ian Heinisch definitely has a tendency to go out there and capitalize on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts that can't put him away in that first round. And you start to gas out on a guy like Ian Heinisch, and he will start to put that pressure on you. But that being said, Omari Akhmedov, since he's moved up to middleweight, he's undefeated. He's the more experienced guy here. Which way you going?
This is a great matchup. Ian Heinisch coming off his first loss against Derek Brunson. Kind of showed the holes in his takedown defense. Once again, he got taken down. He's been taken down in all 3 of his UFC fights multiple times. Kid definitely has fights with a lot of heart. Good footwork early, but as the fight progresses on, he kind of does have the tendency to slow down. But I think, to be honest, he kind of got rushed into the top 15 a little bit. I think he was I don't want to say a beneficiary because I bet on him against Carlos Jr., but I mean, you guys have already heard what I think about Carlos Jr. for a long time now. I think the guy's severely overrated. I think he's a one-trick pony, and I think Heinisch was just a guy that capitalized and proved that, just like Uriah Hall. But I don't think that Ian Heinisch necessarily has the all the experience to be a valid top 15 185er. Cesar Ferreira's on the tail end of his career. And Carlos Jr. I don't think's top 15. So when he fought Brunson, he landed that big head kick early, but after that, man, he got severely outclassed. I mean, Brunson dominated that fight. Brunson put on a clinic. Now he's fighting Omari Akhmedov. Omari Akhmedov has kind of been at 170. He was real spotty. You know, took KO losses to Serginho Moraes. Lost to Elijah Zaleski dos Santos, kind of all in similar fashions and points where in the third round he just looked really gassed and he would get finished with strikes and then he'd get knocked out and then he moved up to 185s. But at 170 he also had some glimpses of good performances, man. That Kyle Noak victory in which he dominated him, man, the Razak Al-Hassan fight, and even in the Elijah fight, that was fight of the night, man. He showed some good skills. I mean, dude's got talent, dude's got a blast double, dude's strong. He can kickbox. Then he moves up to 85, fights Marvin Vettori, who I'm really high on. I think Marvin Vettori's got a bright future. I think Marvin Vettori's headed towards the rankings. And they went to a draw. Omari looked really good coming up a weight class. A lot of power. I'm not convinced that Ian Heinisch has ever been in a fight like that where he's had to take concussive blows and keep going. I feel like Ian Heinisch has been in some grappling-ish type of dog fights, but I don't think he's been in a tussled with a Russian and really gone toe-to-toe with big, heavy guys that are willing to eat his shots, mix it up with the wrestling. I think Omari's added a lot more tools in his game. I think he's progressively fighting a little smarter. I think Omari's got a lot of advantages in this fight. I think the angle of Ian being the guy that could capitalize maybe in the late rounds, I'm not going to disagree with it, but I don't think it's to the extent that people are making it. I think there's a chance where Omari can come out here and just completely nullify him with the grappling, tie him up, land the harder shots. I think he's got more firepower. I'm going to go with Omari Akhmedov. I think that he's going to stamp his top 15 ranking here. The guy's been looking better fight to fight. Definitely still, a little chinny, but I just don't think Ian Heinisch is the guy to capitalize on that. I think truly that he capitalized on two jiu-jitsu black belts that don't have a lot of heart, and then he got exposed against Brunson. So I'm going to go with Omari Akhmedov.
I definitely think that Ian Heinisch got rushed into that top 15 for sure, because when you saw that fight against Brunson, Derek Brunson went out there and gave Ian Heinisch a tour of the octagon, and there's no other way to put it, man. Heinisch looked lost out there, and Brunson's the guy we always criticize for running with his chin straight in the air and flailing all over the place, and that dude showed Ian Heinisch what it really means to be a UFC veteran. And interestingly enough, Omari Akhmedov might do the same thing, because when you talk about these fights that Ian Heinisch has been winning, and look, I picked him in his first 3 UFC fights. I picked him against Ferreira, bet him against Antonio Carlos Jr., but the thing with those fights is those guys don't have wrestling backgrounds, and the one time that Heinisch fought a wrestler, you saw what happened, guys. Don't act like you don't remember what happened when he fought Brunson, because I remember. And here with Omari Akhmedov, here's my biggest question, because I know Omari's been criticized for his cardio in the past, but I feel like Heinisch cardio isn't necessarily this marathon runner like everyone's trying to make him out to be, because I've noticed that guy gassing out too. It's just he had more of a will to win than a guy like Antonio Carlos Jr. He had more heart than a guy like Cesar Mutanchi Ferreira, but I'm not exactly convinced that he can just will himself to victory against a guy like Omari Akhmedov. And what I'm most curious about in this fight is when Ian Heinisch is trying to push that pace on Omari Akhmedov, is he going to carelessly go in there and slug some big bombs? Is he going to not have too much respect for the power of Akhmedov? Or is Omari's firepower going to be one of those things where it makes Ian Heinisch have to slow down and fight that kind of slow-paced Russian coast type fight that Omari Akhmedov does? Because if that's the case, Omari's going to come out here and do exactly what he wants. And when he wants to blast double him, he will blast double him. When it's time to throw big bombs, it's time to throw big bombs. So I'm very intrigued to see. This is going to let me know exactly how good Ian Heinisch really is, because if you're good enough to beat Akhmedov, then maybe you are ready for the top 15 right now. So I can't wait to find out. I've been more impressed with Akhmedov at middleweight thus far. So we'll see exactly what happens. I think it's a close fight, so I'm going to lean with the dog, but We're going to tune in Saturday night and find out exactly where these two middleweights stand. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got Ketlen Vieira. She's 10-0, and Irene Aldana is 11-5. Currently, they got Ketlen Vieira -175. The comeback on Irene Aldana is +155. Well, Shaq, you got Brazil versus Mexico. It's going to be one hell of a matchup. We haven't seen Ketlen Vieira in a while. I know everybody remembers that max bet we cashed against Kat Zingano at very close odds. Since that point, she had a couple surgeries, but very talented nonetheless. Irene Aldana's been putting in work. Who you got?
This is a great fight. Ketlen Vieira, undefeated, 10-0. Exposed Fraud McMahon back in the day. I know you remember that one with the submission.
Guys, whenever Sarah McMahon fights, just pick her opponent by second round submission.
Just fade McMahon. But anyways, Irene Aldana's been fighting very, very frequently, so Kellen's coming off a layoff, so I guess Irene has a advantage in that aspect. But Irene, I think she's a good fighter, good hands, maybe even a little bit of a speed advantage in this matchup against Ketlen, who's more of a stalker, kind of like Andrade type, but a little more controlled, and she's actually got judo and some really nifty little grappling techniques with those judo trips and things of that nature. So. And Aldana, I don't want to say that she's overrated or underrated. I just think that she's just not a gatekeeper, but just a solid top, 10, 11 chick. I think that Aldana struggles at times when she gets pushed back a lot. In fights against Punahele, which was a war, she got pushed back a lot. I mean, that fight could have went either way. Then she fought Betch Carrera, who was really slow, missed weight by 6 pounds. And, just put on a solid performance. She was able to get the finish, but I just don't see things like that happening to someone like Ketlen Vieira. Then her fight against Raquel Pennington, the fight where, everyone thought Aldana was finally going to get over that hump and enter the top 5, the top 6 picture. The fight, look, it was it's little adjustments that she can make to eke out a win like that. But the thing is, all 3 rounds were very close. I thought Pennington won the second and third clearly, but in those fights, we thought Irene was going to have a significant boxing advantage, and Raquel Pennington was the one that was landing harder shots, and Irene just seemed a little step behind, and she gave up that takedown in the third round, went for a leg lock, and just lost the fight. Look, I think Ketlen Vieira's just better everywhere. I think she's got more power on the feet. I think that she's going to close the distance very carefully, tie her up when she wants to. And if this fight hits the mat, I'm not 100% convinced that Irene is going to get back up. I know she's good on the mat, but Ketlen tapped out Sarah McMahon with that arm triangle. And then that last fight against Kat Zingano, man, she had some nice trips, got in full mount, was landing some good ground and pound. Ketlen's issue is the typical Nova issue, in the third round, from time to time she'll, but it's usually because she's up by so wide of a margin that like Petr and them tell her just chill out this round. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're up 2 rounds, just chill out. I'm interested to see what happens, but I gotta go with Ketlen Vieira. I think she's more talented, more ferocious, bigger, better skills on the mat, more power, and I think she's gonna get this one by 30-27. So I'll go with Ketlen Vieira.
Yeah, it's so good to see Ketlen Vieira back inside the octagon, and this is the perfect fight for her to come back in there and get her feet wet after 2 years off, and let everybody know that hey, I am a serious, legit contender in the top 10 of this division. And when you talk about Irene Aldana, I'm a fan. She's very exciting to watch. I like her output a lot, but I'll tell you what I don't like, Shaq, and what I think is going to be, or what has been her biggest issue and what will continue to be, is that she is way too hittable. It's amazing when you see that she lands over 6 strikes per minute, but guess how many she eats, Shaq? She eats 6 strikes per minute as well, so it's one of those things where, yeah, she's going to be out there throwing, but the thing is she's going to be out there getting hit as well. And when you talk about the power that Ketlen Vieira brings to the table, just look at Ashley Evans-Smith's face in that fight. She had no idea what hit her, and I have a feeling that the pretty face of Irene Aldana might be compromised in this bout as well, man. I think her nose is going to get bloody. I think she's going to eat some big shots. I think the judo trips of Ketlen Vieira are going to play a factor, and Shaq brought up a good point. Will she get back up from bottom? I'm not entirely sure. She didn't get back up from bottom against Raquel Pennington, and here against this serious judo player with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, it might be kind of tough to get back up too, Shaq. So I think that Ketlen Vieira's got her covered in all areas, and I actually think Ketlen Vieira should be a bigger favorite in this spot, so I'm going with Ketlen Vieira here to dominate Irene Aldana. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Platinum Mike Perry. He's 13-5. And Geoff Hands of Steel Neal is 12-2. Currently, they got Geoff Neal minus 250. The comeback on Mike Perry is plus 210. Well, Shaq, you know Mike Perry's at that point of his career now where potential top 10 guys get tested against Mike Perry. So is Geoff Neal a future top 10 guy or not?
Yeah, this is a big fight for Perry. I mean, I don't want to say I don't think his job's on the line. I'm not talking anything like that. But I just, in the career trajectory, I really think he needs to win this fight. I mean, he's on the verge of going 6-6. And, you know, he likes to talk trash with a lot of big names. But the more your record 6-6, 6-6, and 6-7, and 7-7. You know, it's just going to be more amusable. So I think that Perry has to win this fight against Geoff Neal. And I'll tell you what, Geoff Neal, I've been really high on Geoff Neal since Contender Series. Picked him to win all his fights. Really impressed with his last 2 wins against Belal Muhammad and Nico Price. His 2 legit names, Frank Camacho and Brian Camozzi. You know, those are low-level competition. So these last 2 wins definitely put some stamp. But to be honest, even with Mike Perry's 6-5 record, I think he's honestly more of a threat than both those guys. You know, I think that Belal Muhammad is a lot smaller, likes to use a head movement, and it's kind of going to be really tough to use that style against a fast guy like Geoff, and he's kind of fighting with his hands down. And Nico Price, I'll tell you what, after watching that fight a couple more times, I don't want to say Geoff Neal's overrated, but I'm just not 100% sure, or even 80% sure that he's ready to I think this fight's just going to be a lot more intense. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because Nico Price definitely tested him. I mean, the headbutt knockdown. But then what about when Nico Price started charging at him in that second round, and Geoff definitely did a chicken dance. His leg definitely wobbled. But Nico Price decided to go for a guillotine, you know, and Geoff Neal was a lot much more stronger than Nico Price on the mat. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that against a guy like Mike Perry, go to that grappling aspect in his game. Maybe he does. I think he's going to have to play this very safe and throw that 1-2 and just keep it very disciplined. I'm not 100% sure he's got a chin to take those type of shots. So I do think there is a little bit of value on Perry betting-wise, but Perry is also a guy who I kind of compare to Jeremy Stephens. The game plan, I don't want to say is easy, but you know that this guy is very reckless. You know that he takes a lot of damage in his fights. He can get very sloppy at times. I mean, he lost to Max Griffin, guys. I mean, what I'm getting at is at times he can just make catastrophic type of mistakes. But I will tell you what, I think his last fight against Vicente Luque was the best he ever looked. I think he's got a lot of power, and I think that this could possibly be a spot where he could sneak up on a guy like Geoff Neal, just due to the fact that I'm not 100% sure that Geoff Neal's ready to go on this level. So I will take Geoff Neal. I think he's the fighter with the higher ceiling. I think he can touch Mike Perry with his straight left if he keeps it disciplined. But from a betting perspective, I think the line's a little bit too steep to test that out. And I think from a betting perspective, it's Mike Perry or pass. But I'll take Geoff Neal for a close decision win.
I love that comparison of Mike Perry to Jeremy Stephens because it's so true. Because with Mike Perry, you know exactly what he's going to bring to the table. And it's up to you to be able to stop it, because he's not going to come out here and, you know, hump your leg for 15 straight minutes. He's not going to pull guard. He's not going to, you know, he's not going to come out with some sidekick to the leg type game or, you know, start establishing his jab. Mike Perry's going to go out there and try to swing big bungalows and try to knock you the fuck out, and that's why everyone enjoys watching him fight so much. That's why he can have a 500 record for the rest of his career and still stay inside the UFC's octagon, because every single time this guy fights, he brings it. Now, a lot of people are acting like he got robbed against Vicente Luque. No, he didn't. Vicente Luque clearly won that fight. Was it a good effort by Mike Perry? No doubt about it. The guy is exciting every single time he fights, win, lose, or draw. But to sit here and actually act like he won that fight, I mean, guys, his nose got smashed in a way where I don't even know if it's ever going to be the same. And speaking of which, it hasn't been that long since his last fight. I wonder how the recovery's been, because Geoff Neal starts getting off on that straight left down the pipe and he breaks that nose again. Not that Mike Perry's going to, you know, quiver or shy away or anything like that, but it's gonna get easier to inflict that kind of damage. And in a close fight, you know, the judges are looking at whose face is all bloody. And not to mention, I think that Geoff Neal has more output. He's the faster guy. It's just about, there might be a chance that Geoff Neal has a little bit of a suspect chin, and we want to find out firsthand, test him against a knockout artist. All right, here's Mike Perry. So we're going to find out firsthand what the deal is. Mike Perry has a 500 history against Southpaws, lost to Juban, beat Danny Hot Chocolate. Now let's see if third time's the charm or not. So it's going to be interesting. I have to lean with Geoff Neal just because the blueprint's been laid out on how to beat Mike Perry, and I know Sayif Saud's in this guy's ear letting him know, dude, don't do anything stupid. Just go out here and pick this guy apart, win this decision. So if there's a knockout, I think it's actually going to be on Perry's side, but I see it going all three. I'm going Geoff Neal via decision. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got Piechota Urijah. He's 13-1, and Urijah Faber is 35-10. Currently, they got Piechota Urijah minus 500. The comeback on Urijah Faber is plus 400. Well, Shaq, how interesting is it that Ricky Simón actually competed more recently than Urijah Faber after that starching?
Hey, man, shout out to Ricky. He got fight of the night. He put on a great fight.
Yeah, now with that 50K bonus, why don't you pay back every single person that lost on you against Faber? So who you got in this matchup?
Yeah, this is a great fight. Petr Yan, I like his performance against Jimmy Rivera. I've been high on Petr Yan since the De Silva fight, man, when he left De Silva in a pool of blood to the point where he couldn't continue. I was like, man, this guy, his pace and his pressure is something serious. Faber, look, I respect Faber. He's a legend, but Ricky Simon is nowhere near the competitor Petr Yan. Petr Yan's a lot faster, just a lot more meaner. Petr Yan gets real vicious when he's moving forward with that pressure, his kicks, his punches. At times he can get a little reckless. You know, he will take a big punch from time to time, but you got to expect that when you fight with that much pressure, like a Justin Gaethje, for example. I mean, you're going to take a shot return, but I think he can eat it. I think he can overwhelm Faber with his pace. Ricky Simon was too reckless, too slow, not as good as a boxer as Petr
Yan. Too
overconfident. Petr Yan, this guy's from Siberia. This guy takes, baths under in ice water. So I got Petr Yan by vicious TKO. Probably somewhere early in the second round. I think Faber's a legend, but I think he bit more than he can chew.
Well, let's try this again. You know what I'm saying? He's coming off a 3-year layoff now. Granted, he did have one fight in between there with Ricky Simón, who turned out to be a complete fraud. And I mean, let's try this again for real because I don't think you can come off a 3-year layoff and go out there and compete with these top 10 guys. Really top 5 if you want to be honest with it. I love the California Kid. I remember in high school watching him in the WEC back when he was featherweight champ. I mean, I can sit here and give him his tribute all day long. Love the guy, amazing fighter, well-rounded, the whole bit, but this is the new generation of fighter. I don't think that Piechota Urijah is as chinny as Ricky Simón. I don't think he's as overconfident. I think he's actually going to go out there and get the job done in a Justin Gaethje style fashion. Break him down with the leg kicks. When it's time to throw that big left hook, he's going to throw it. And it's all about not getting caught with one shot, not diving headfirst into a guillotine. I think if he avoids those things, he goes out there and repeats the blueprint that all these guys have shown us throughout the years, whether it's Mikey Brown, whether it's Renan Barão, Jose Aldo, you know what I'm saying? So, I got Piechota Urijah to finish the California Kid Urijah Faber here, and I think that his minus 500 price tag is warranted. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got Marlon Moraes. He's 22-6, and Jose Aldo Jr. is 28-5. Currently, they got Marlon Moraes minus 225. The comeback on Jose Aldo is plus 185. Well, Shaq, I mean, the whole talking point here is he going to make weight? Is he not going to make weight? I don't give a fuck if he makes weight. What I care about is how is he going to perform on Saturday night?
I mean, he's going to fight regardless whether he makes the weight or not. So, Jose Aldo, legend of the sport, kind of, I don't want to give him like a Faber treatment because he's been fighting a lot more recently. Knocked out Moicano, knocked out Jeremy Stephens. But his last fight against Alexander Volkanovski, look, he couldn't pull the trigger. And that was due to Alexander Volkanovski just being a really good fighter and Alexander Volkanovski having really good feints. And now he's fighting Moraes. I think this is also a similar situation like what I said about guys like Jacare, what I said about guys like Weidman. They're getting desperate, and now they start to think, maybe if I change a weight class, things are going to change. And I think that Jose is just, I don't want to say his ego is getting the best of him, but I just think he's desperate. He's looking for answers. I think what he should do is stay at 45s and just let's start fighting prospects. You know what I'm saying? Let's fight the Burgoses of the world and the Arnold Allens and the Emmets of the world. But he wants to drop to 35. I think he's severely depleting himself. I think the guy looks sick. Marlon Moraes, although in the past I actually faded Marlon Moraes against Henry Cejudo his last fight. Marlon Moraes was on a roll. He was putting dudes out in less than 20, 30 seconds. I did say, historically speaking, that if you can get Marlon Moraes outside the first round, that he kind of has the tendency to be a little lackluster, maybe a little slow. But the thing is, he's about to be going up against an old, slow Brazilian, and you already know what happens at 45 when Aldo is outmatched in the second and third rounds when he starts looking tired. What do you think is going to happen at 135 when he starts looking outmatched and tired? It's probably going to be a little worse. I think Marlon honestly can, if this fight does get extended, I think he can coast as well. I think Jose is fighting a younger version of himself. I think Henry Cejudo, honestly, is one of the greats. I don't shame Marlon Moraes for that loss at all. I think Henry Cejudo, they don't call him Triple C for no reason. I mean, the guy's a champ, one of the best to ever do it. And I think Henry Cejudo has a way better pace than Jose Aldo, better skills than Jose Aldo at this point in their career. So I'm going to go with Marlon Moraes. I'm going to say first round KO by quote-unquote early stoppage. I think Jose is going to be crying early stoppage on Saturday night. I think he's going to get hit with something, probably a sharp head kick, and just maybe go limp. He's cutting too much weight. I think he's desperate. I got Marlon Moraes.
Yeah, look, the biggest question is, why is Jose Aldo dropping 135 pounds? I'll tell you why. It's because, first of all, he definitely ain't touching gold at 145 ever again. He already lost to the champ twice, already lost to the number one contender, Volkanovski, so that's out the question. And then the whole talk back in the day about him moving up to 55s. Well, guess what? Pettis ain't the champ no more. So you put Jose Aldo there at 155 pounds, and non-top 15 guys are going to mop the floor with him. So that's out the question. And then it was like, well, why don't we just take easier fights at featherweight? And, Jose's got too much pride for all of that. He's not about to start fighting. I say easier fight. He's not about to start fighting Calvin Kattar. You know what I'm saying? So now let's try bantamweight, and you don't get to fight Eddie Wineland.
You couldn't fight Cub Swanson?
Yeah, exactly. You should have fought do the Cub Swanson rematch, but and instead, not dropping a bantamweight, you don't get the Eddie Wineland fight. You don't get to fight Hanayaya. Here's Marlon Moraes in a pay-per-view in the featured bout. So, yeah, look, man, obviously Jose is a legend of the sport. I actually think he's a better fighter than Marlon Moraes. It's just that I don't think he's a better fighter when he's killing himself the night before. And when I say killing himself, he was already killing himself to make featherweight. Now it's like, he's going to cut his leg off here. It ain't even about making the weight. It's about how he performs the next day. I mean, take a Hanayaya fight or an Eddie Wineland fight or a Ricky Simone fight to see how you perform the next day. Don't go in there with Marlon Moraes.
Fight Cody Stamen, fight Song Yadong.
So I think it's going to be one head kick behind the ear, and the fight will be over shortly after. If this goes the distance, I think Marlon's going to win as well. So I'm going Marlon Moraes to defeat the great Jose Aldo, the former champion and future Hall of Famer. Now, next up for the bantamweight title, we got Amanda the Lioness Nunes. She's 18-4, and Germaine de Randamie is 9-3. Currently, they got Amanda Nunes minus 310. The comeback on Germaine de Randamie is plus 255. Well, Shaq, they met once before. Amanda Nunes stopped Germaine de Randamie in the first round. One takedown. The fight was over shortly after. Since that point, Amanda Nunes went on to become the champ. Germaine de Randamie went on to touch featherweight gold. Who do you think gets it done here in the bantamweight title fight?
Yeah, Amanda Nunes, like I said, is the GOAT. Clearly knocked out Chris Cyborg, who I thought was the GOAT at the time of when they fought. So Amanda Nunes is a serious competitor. Germaine de Randamie, some people think she's got a stand-up advantage in this fight. She definitely got some knockout power, definitely 48-0 in Muay Thai. She's definitely probably the more credentialed striker. Man, you got to think Amanda Nunes is just too dynamic. She has the threat of the stand-up mixed in with the grappling. Germaine de Randamie is a great fighter, but I just think she's going to be overmatched in every area. I think Nunes is just too ferocious, too good. I just don't see how she gets out this 5 rounds unless she lands a lucky punch. But I'm going to go with Amanda Nunes by second round TKO.
Obviously, one hell of a rematch the first time, so dominant for Amanda Nunes. And since that point, Amanda Nunes has been going out there and making history. All the amount of champions and former champions she has under her resume. And just the well-rounded skill set she brings to the table. Obviously, earlier on in her career, she was more known for that jiu-jitsu black belt. But man, she's really evolved her striking. Now she's going out there knocking ladies out in the first round. So it's really, there's no safe place in the fight against Amanda Nunes. And when you talk about Germaine de Randamie, The technique in her striking is very, very on point. One of the best in women's MMA history. So you have to give Germaine de Randamie a lot of credit. My biggest question is, what happens if this hits the mat? The first time they fought, it did hit the mat. It was over shortly after. Since that point, Germaine de Randamie has definitely developed her skills, and she's gone out there, and I got a lot of faith in her takedown defense. I think it's very, very good. I think that against the fence specifically is where she really thrives, and I do think against these girls like Holly Holm and Raquel Pennington that it's really held up nicely, and it really shows the improvement she's made. She even made comments about how her favorite day of the week is no gi day, so I got a lot of respect for Germaine de Randamie. The thing is that Amanda Nunes is not Holly Holm or Raquel Pennington, and I do think that when Amanda Nunes gets this to the mat, similar to the first time, it might be over shortly after again, because although Germaine de Randamie has this amazing takedown defense, we don't really know what her submission defense is like. We don't know what happens beyond the takedown defense. Let's say she gets taken down, then what? We don't really need to watch fights with Anna Elmos for reference. You understand what I'm saying, Shaq? This is a whole nother ball game, so while there is a chance that Germaine de Randamie, gets off on some strikes early, maybe picks her apart a little bit, I don't just think that Amanda Nunes' only path to victory is on the mat. I think Amanda Nunes can go out there and beat her standing as well. I have a little suspicion that Germaine de Randamie might be a little chinny. I know Holly Holm almost made her go face first, and now we got a real knockout artist here in Amanda Nunes, and I think she will go face first. So I'm going Amanda Nunes to win this fight inside the distance. Co-main event of the evening in the featherweight division, we got Max Blessed Holloway, he's 21-4, and Alexander the Great Volkanovski is 20-1. Currently, they got Max Holloway -175. The comeback on Alexander Volkanovski is +155. Well, Shaq, obviously you got one of the longest reigning featherweight champions in history, Max Holloway, taking on a very promising challenger, and Alex Volkanovski. Should be a hell of a fight while it lasts. You think one guy's going to dominate, or you see this being a back-and-forth war?
Yeah, I see this being a back-and-forth war. I think this has all the potential to be fight of the night. Holloway, one of the best volume strikers the sport has ever seen. This guy, all he does is march down guys and overwhelm them with volume until the point where they can no longer take any more. Now, when you really look at who that's against, a guy that we mentioned earlier, Jose Aldo, on the tail end of his career, although Max did beat him in Brazil, so did Volkanovski. And Brian Ortega and Frankie Edgar. So I think Alexander Volkanovski already is a bigger threat than all those guys. Brian Ortega was undefeated at the time, but Brian Ortega is a guy that we know he takes a lot of punches, man.
Can't box.
Kid can't box. I don't know. Just watch them two fight. Tell me who the better boxer is. But I think that Alexander Volkanovski's last 3 fights, he's definitely gained a level each fight. The Elkins fight, he was a little sloppy, but that was his first opponent that was ranked. Then he fought Chad Mendes, a former title challenger, and that was a war. It showed his resiliency. He got dropped in that fight. Chad Mendes those bombs. Chad Mendes might have the most knockdowns in featherweight history, if I'm not mistaken. Chad Mendes cracked him. He got back up. He even got taken down in that fight, but he just kept moving forward. He kept feigning on the outside, and he eventually knocked him out. And then against Jose Aldo in Brazil, he completely wiped Aldo out for 3 rounds, didn't really eat any punches. Just outclassed him, outmaneuvered him like it was nothing. So I think this is Holloway's biggest threat. Obviously, I feel like Max deserves to be favored. He's the champ. He's the guy that has put away 13 featherweights in a row. I think that Max is the greatest featherweight of all time, but I do progressively see signs of a guy that, he's been fighting for a long time. He made his debut all the way back in 2012 when he was 20 years old against Dustin Poirier the first time. So I think that Max, although he's still young in age, in the fighting sense of it, he might be getting a little bit older. I'm not sure that now when you add in this cut back to featherweight after the Dustin Poirier fight at 155 pounds, in which we finally saw him get wobbled and hurt really badly on the feet for the first time in a long time. Now that you mix in the 145-pound thing, is he going to be able to take a shot the same way that he used to? Personally, I don't feel like Frankie Edgar was a good enough test to test that out. Frankie Edgar's on the tail end of his career. I love Frankie Edgar, but he's only got a couple more fights left in him. Alexander Volkanovski is the biggest threat at 145 pounds by a long shot, in my opinion. I think that he presents a lot of problems just due to the fact that he knows what to do on the outside. He actually has feints and fakes. Now, the big question is he going to be able to to counteract that volume style of Holloway. And he's going to have to counter that with his power. I mean, the guy hits like a truck. I think that Holloway is getting progressively more chinny. Obviously, we haven't seen Volkanovski's chin tested throughout the duration of 5 rounds. Maybe we've seen it in 1 round against Mendes. But I'm confident that the guy can take his shots, man. The guy used to weigh 200 pounds, former rugby player. I think Holloway's a great champion, but I think he's finally met his match here. I think that Alexander Volkanovski has the feints and fakes from the outside to get Max to do what he always does. He drops his jab hand off his jab. I think that Volkanovski can land his overhand right or anything else, man. I think that he's just the best fighter that Max has fought at 145 pounds, and I'm going to take him for the upset. I think the odds are good. I think Holloway, when you look at his last opponents, I mean, I'm just not shocked that he did that. So maybe I was the first time when he initially did that, but what have you done for me lately? It's only been Jose Aldo, Brian Ortega, who I think Alexander Volkanovski's on a different caliber fighter than. I know Ortega's only got the 1 loss, and he's on the Bud Light commercial, and he's great, and this and that. But I truly think the kid was in trouble against Zombie coming up here. But now he's not in that fight. But I'm gonna go with Alexander Volkanovski in an upset. I think the fight ends inside the distance as well. I think that whoever wins the fight gets finished inside the distance.
Yeah, it's one hell of a matchup. Obviously, Max Holloway, the greatest featherweight champion of all time. I think, greater featherweight champion than the great Jose Aldo, greater than Urijah Faber back in the WEC. So, man, and also you got to remember my boy Conor McGregor, who never defended the belt. So, but went out there and beat Max and Jose and won another belt up a weight class. So the debate about who is the best featherweight of all time is still definitely intact. For me personally, my vote is Max Holloway. But this is an interesting matchup, man, because you don't get to go out there and the fight's already won before it even started, like against Frankie Edgar. I mean, did any of y'all actually think Frankie was going to win that fight? Like, come on.
Frankie's live.
Like, what? Frankie's what? So,
Frankie couldn't even got wiped out by Jose Aldo.
Like, Frankie didn't have a shot in that fight. And, Ortega, I mean, you had my boy Big Marley. Holloway was his play of the year. I think that Ortega, we learned he's got no boxing. He can submit guys. He's got an unbelievable jiu-jitsu, but if that doesn't happen, then it's over with. I think this kid, Volkanovski's got a very well-rounded skill set, and not saying that he's going to go out there and dethrone the great Max Holloway, but what I am saying is that this isn't just going to be some walk in the park where Max Holloway gets to point his finger down to the ground and, be cute against Ricardo Lamas, who everybody's beaten. And we love Jose Aldo. We love all these guys like Frankie Edgar, but this is his first time taking on one of the new-gen featherweights, and it's going to be interesting to see how he does. I know someone could say, well, what about Ortega? Like I said, Ortega doesn't have any boxing, so I don't really see what the big deal is there. So now I'm very intrigued to see what happens, because this kid, Volkanovski, you've seen him go out there and outgrind grinders. You saw that Jeremy Kennedy fight where he didn't, keep the fight standing where he has a clear advantage. No, he took Jeremy Kennedy into his own area, got on top of the kid, and pounded him out. Then you see his fight against Chad Mendes, and, he didn't, just rely on the fact that he was the longer guy for once, and pick the guy apart. No, he went out there and banged with one of the hardest bangers in the featherweight division's history. Then the next fight against Jose Aldo, a guy with championship caliber, a guy who, former champion, former future Hall of Famer, all these things, went out there and shut him down with those feints, then actually started point fighting against Jose Aldo. So what that tells me is that Alex Volkanovski can grind you out, he can pound you out, he can go out there and stand and bang, but he can also play a point fighting game, as you saw in the Jose Aldo fight. So Alex Volkanovski is very well-rounded. He brings something serious to the table, not to mention the kid's a tank as well. So I do agree with you when you say that this is going to be Holloway's toughest test during his featherweight title reign. So that makes it very interesting for me, because when you go back and you look at the line between Max Holloway and Ortega, it was a pick'em. And at one point, Ortega was even favored. Now, I think this is such a tougher fight, and it's such a wider line that it has me leaning towards the dog here. So while it won't surprise me if the great Max Holloway comes out and defends his belt, and we love the guy, we respect him, he's unbelievable, you start to slow down on a guy like Max Holloway, and he will tee off on you. But the thing is, I don't really see this kid, Alex Volkanovski, slowing down, and we know that big power can be a factor against Max Holloway, as you saw in that Dustin Poirier fight. And I'm not comparing Alex to Dustin. They're completely different fighters, but what I am going to say is that Alex hits extremely hard. He's very durable. He's well-rounded. And he's actually going to bring a real fight to Max Holloway. This isn't going to be like the Frankie Edgar fight where, you know what I mean, Max Holloway can play with his hands down, make facial expressions, you know, point to the crowd, clap, do all these things, you know, talk to Dana while he's fighting him.
Talk to Rush.
You know, point the finger down like to his son in the crowd, then his son points the finger down, and it's all cute, all these great moments. I really don't see that happening in this fight here against Volkanovski. I see this being a tooth and nail battle to the brink, man, and we're gonna see who the real champ is. It's not gonna surprise me either way, but in a fight that I think is gonna be a nail biter, is gonna be a 50-50 fight, I got to go with these plus 155 odds. So I'm actually going to take Alexander Volkanovski to dethrone the great Max Holloway. And I can't wait to see how it plays out. Main event in the evening for the welterweight title. We got Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare Usman, or as Colby Covington likes to say, the Nigerian NyQuil. He's 15-1, and Colby Covington is also 15-1. Currently, they got Kamaru Usman minus 185. The comeback on Colby Covington is plus 160. Shaq, one of the most high-level welterweight title fights we've seen since the George St. Pierre days. Who you got?
Yeah, it's a great matchup. I mean, me and you kind of seen this matchup coming from a long time ago, man. Both these guys, with their wrestling backgrounds, I mean, they were dominating when they were on the undercards and things like that. So these guys were barely losing rounds, so it's good to see them make it to the top. It's a great fight. Colby, obviously, probably the lighter, more efficient, you know, volume style, and Kamaru's more the stronger, more powerful. Both good wrestlers, both like to use the cage. It's a matter of can Kamaru break Colby's rhythm of that pace with the big power shots and mix in his wrestling a little bit, or is Kamaru not taking him seriously? Like pretty much all of Colby's other opponents, you know, he's talking all this nonsense. He's doing all this other shit. They don't take him seriously enough. And then next thing you know, he's doing the mat return on them like 5 times, and now it's the fight's pretty much over at that point. So I think that it's definitely hard to imagine Kamaru Usman getting taken down like over and over again. But what you can say is that Colby Covington's striking is getting better fight to fight, and it's getting significantly better because when you look at the Demian Maia fight in which he got criticized for the way he was throwing his punches, you know, he attributed it to, he said that in Brazil the mat was super slippery the night that he fought Demian Maia. He said he had no type of footing, and he said that that's why he looked so shaky. Then he fought Dos Anjos, and you know, he just keeps things really simple, keeps things really basic, throws a lot of kicks. But then in the Robbie Lawler fight, he was actually mixing in jabs. He was slipping. He was throwing power shots. He's got a new striking coach now, so I wouldn't be shocked if you start seeing Colby Covington having more success on the feet these days. Usman's stand-up's definitely come a long way. I remember when he first started, I mean, dude was a stiff dude. Could definitely take us straight, but he's got that big African power that is so hard to fight, man, because it's so hard to do anything to those guys. It's going to be a matter of kind of like similar to Ngannou situation, you know, let's like when Ngannou fought Stipe Miocic, you know, that's how I could see a guy like Usman struggling. You know, I've actually heard that in their wrestling days, they're kind of facing they would kind of lose to similar styles to what they're fighting now. You know, I would hear Usman, whenever he lost, it would be because he got fatigued and he would get really tired. And I heard when Covington lost, it would be because he fought a dude that was too strong. So I love this matchup. I think that I can't really have a pick, man, because I feel like they're both super similar. I feel like Colby throws more volume, but I've never seen him hurt with a punch. I think he's got a really good chin. And Usman as well. You know, I think that the guys that he's been fighting kind of were, I don't want to say remains of Colby Covington, but look, Demian Maia, I separate guys like Usman and Covington from the rest of the pack because I know what type of guys, how they fight. They just fight to win. They fight to win rounds. Whereas you know, when Demian Maia's fighting Ben Askren and like fucking and Lyman Good and Rocco Martin, it's like you don't even, you know, think it's a similar fight, you know what I'm saying? So I think that that what Kamaru did was pretty much the same thing that Covington did, just showed more power. Covington showed a lighter, more efficient style. So I think it's I don't want to say a 50-50 fight. I guess I understand why you would lead Kamaru. He's strong. He's undefeated in the UFC. He just beat the great Tyron Woodley, beat him down 5 rounds. But Covington's been out here beating guys down, like 30, 25, 26, like legends of the sport. The same guys that Usman's beat. So I don't really necessarily see this big wide advantage between the two guys, unless you're, getting emotional like most people do when Colby Covington fights. I think it's a dog or pass situation from a betting perspective. But I slightly do lean Usman. I think, that he's just a little bit more stronger, more powerful. But I do think he's not taking Covington as seriously as he should. I do think that progressively he's going to feel more pressure the closer this gets to the fight. So I would not be shocked if Covington melted him.
But your pick is Usman?
But my pick is Usman by it's either going to be a guillotine or a decision.
It's an interesting fight, man. Obviously, you got to give Kamaru a lot of credit for that Woodley performance, but one thing I got to say is that
Woodley was done.
If Colby fought Woodley, it would have been the exact same thing. He'd put a pace on him where the guy wouldn't even recover after 30 seconds. So, because Woodley likes to do nothing, then explode with a big right hand. But when you make the guy work over and over and over, then all of a sudden he's a completely different guy. And I truly believe with all my heart that Colby Covington would have done that to Woodley as well, but they didn't get to fight, so it is what it is. Now these two meet in the main event, and man, I cannot wait, because obviously, like Shaq alluded to, Kamaru might be the stronger guy, but Colby's got the higher pace. Such a hell of a fight between two high-level competitors, and I know there's all the talk and all this bullshit, but we don't got to get involved in all that. None of that stuff really matters. All that matters is the skill sets, because they are very similar. They are almost complementary, and you guys already know the cliche that, every time you got two wrestlers in there, it becomes a stand and bang fest, and I could see that to an extent, but I could also see each guy trying to implement the same game plan they've implemented over and over and over again against each other, just almost like a dick measuring contest. I think that Colby Covington actually pushes a higher pace, and Shaq mentioned back in those wrestling days, Kamaru, when he would lose fights, firstly, Kamaru is D2, Colby is D1. Not that it matters. I'm just saying there are punches involved here, but I had to point that out. So Kamaru was known for gassing out when he lost matches, and when Colby lost matches, it was always against stronger guys. So it's interesting that each guy's strength plays into the other one's weakness, so there's that going on. But man, that cardio I've seen from Colby is so elite to a point where I think he's going to come out here and win the UFC welterweight title, man. So I'm actually going with the very controversial Colby Covington to piss off most of the community and cash a plus 160 dog bet here against the very tough Kamaru Usman.
I'm not going to lie. None would make me more happier to see Colby Covington upset a bunch of online people if he wins this belt. But Usman did take out a D1 wrestler his last fight. But like you said, man, Woodley's been out in Hollywood. Woodley, low-key, was going through some shit behind the scenes
wink,
that not a lot of people knew about. Woodley let Hollywood get to him. Woodley whines too much. Woodley's a snooze fest. But I think that, but yeah, he did beat a D1 wrestler in Woodley, and we've seen D2, D3 guys beat D1 guys. Colby Covington's junior college teammate, the great John Jones, beat Olympian Daniel Cormier. Even took him down a couple times, man. So I'm interested to see what happens.
Definitely. Again, if this was minus 110 apiece, I might be having a completely different breakdown. But when you see the plus 160 next to a guy of Colby's caliber, I get you don't like him. I get his political views are different than yours. But what the fuck does that have to do with a fist fight on a Saturday night inside a steel cage for our entertainment? It has nothing to do with it. So I got to go where the value is. I'm a betting man first. I'm going Colby Covington to be the new welterweight champion of the world.
And then we can get this fight with George cracking, and then,
Get the pay-per-view sales rolling. Street Judas. Oh, man, it's too much. And now we got to hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, it's going down this Saturday. UFC 245, 3 title fights on the line. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to this card. It's a good one. We got $50K to first place on DraftKings, so I love to see that, and I'm hoping to clean up.
Well, let's get right down to business, Kyle, because main event of the evening. We've been waiting for this fight for years, back when they were top prospects. Now it's champ versus interim champ or former interim champ, even though he never officially lost. Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. Both guys 15-1. Both guys average over 100 points per fight on DraftKings. But you got 7,300 for Covington, 8,900 for the champion Usman. Which way are we going with this one?
So yeah, it's definitely a fight we're gonna have to target in all of our lineups. It's a totally fine stack in cash type of fight. I think you can even stack this in tournaments as well. I'm gonna go with Usman here. I don't think Covington can do the pressure that we saw from him in his last two fights. He can't just walk forward throwing volume at Usman because he'll be put on his ass. He didn't have to worry about that in his last two fights, but here with Usman, you can't just walk forward without having to worry about not being taken down. So I think Usman's going to be the one walking Covington forward. I think Usman will put him on his ass multiple times in this fight. I just see him being the better MMA wrestler, the stronger guy. And if anyone's going to get a knockout here, I think it's going to be Usman as well. I do think Covington's path is from winning a volume-based striking decision. I just don't think he's going to be able to throw anywhere near 500-600 strikes in this at all. So I wouldn't expect what we've seen from Covington in his last couple fights, but I do want some exposure to him. But I'm probably going to be mostly on Usman here. If I'm making 10 lineups, I would probably go maybe 7 Usman, 3 Covington, something like that. Maybe even 8 Usman, 2 Covington. Because if you're using Covington, like we have to have dogs in our lineup, but using Covington, you're not being tricky at all. He's going to be the most popular underdog on the whole card. So by you starting there, you're going to have to get different elsewhere because that's not a pick that's going to separate you from the field. I'm going to be loading up on these 3 title fights, but I'm going to either leave money on the table or pick some crazy dogs, some favorites we don't really like in our lineup, something to get a little different because you're not going to win 50K by yourself if you're running out all chalk plays. But for this one, I do like Usman. He'll be in most of my lineups.
So, in the co-main event in the evening, and I just got to say right off the bat, this card must be a DraftKings dream because, man, co-main event, just like the main event, both these guys average a very high amount of points. You got the volume striking of Max Holloway. He tees off on his opponents versus Alexander Volkanovski, who can take guys down. He can knock guys out. Who's going to walk home the UFC featherweight champion?
So this is, I think, the closest to one of the title fights. I'm picking Holloway again here. I like the champ, but I think Volkanovski is one of the most live dogs on the card, and he's going to be the underdog I have the most of this week. But again, it's going to be another fight that should be in every one of your lineups because at their prices, it's going to be real hard for them not to make that optimal lineup with the pace that they bring. Holloway can put up 160 points just with significant strikes alone. Like, his pace is insane. You love to have that. And then on the other side at Volkanovski, with his takedowns, his pace that he sets, only at 7,500, there's no chance that he wins, and he's not on the 50K lineup. So that's why you have to target this fight. I'm not going to be as close as all in as I am on Usman. I think I'll be closer to 50-50 on this one, maybe 60-40 Holloway. I also think you can stack this one in cash. I think this is actually the better one to stack. I think you can stack both the fights, though, in a cash game lineup. You can't do anything like that in a GPP because you're going to need 5 or 6 wins in there. But cash games, I think you can go ahead and throw in Usman, Covington, Holloway, Volkanovski, and just work from there, lock in your 250-plus points with that and hope that everyone else makes the mistakes. But for GPPs, I'm going to take Holloway. If I'm only running out one lineup, I would rather just go ahead and have the pace volume from Holloway. I do think he'll be able to keep this on the feet more than not or get back to his feet. And I just have a hard time seeing Volkanovski win 3 or more rounds. I think it's definitely possible. It will probably be a pretty close fight, but it's harder to pick against Holloway. And I love the guy on DraftKings. I don't think 8,700 is a high enough price tag for him.
If 2 title fights wasn't enough, you got a third one because Amanda Nunes is taking on Germaine de Randamie. It's a rematch. Amanda Nunes won the first time inside the distance. Since that point, both ladies have gone on to touch UFC gold. You thinking Amanda Nunes retains that belt?
Yeah, I like Nunes here. I think it's going to be similar to their first fight. I think she should and will go for takedowns here. She's at a smart camp. Why get risky and stand with GDR when that's literally her only way to win this fight? So I like Nunes here a lot. She's going to be one of my favorite plays on the whole slate. And this isn't going to be one that I'm splitting down the middle at all. I might go 0 de Randamie this week and almost all my lineups on Nunes. But I think this is a fight you can get away from. everyone's going to target these 3 title fights. So we got to be different somewhere. I don't mind fading Nunes and maybe going with like a Matt Brown pivot because he's going to be half as owned as Nunes. And if Matt Brown goes out there and gets a first round knockout, that's 100+ points. And if we get Nunes' average of 98.7 from her, then Matt Brown's going to kick her off that optimal lineup at half the ownership. So you got to kind of think about those things when you're going for $50K solo in a tournament with close to 10,000 people in it. You want to differentiate yourself somewhere. This could be one of the fights to do it, but Nunes is my favorite player on the card. I'm sure I'll have way more of her than anybody else. Her and Usman are going to be my top 2 on the entire card. So that's where most of my lineups will start. I'm not getting any different at all from the field there, so I'm going to have to do it elsewhere in my lineups.
So you mentioned you're going to have 0 Germaine to Randamie. You said Matt Brown might be a good option there, but let me ask you this. Are you going to have more Ben Saunders than Germaine de Randamie hoping for a body kick?
Yeah, I'll definitely have I don't know how I'm not going to have a lot of them, but I do want at least one Ben Saunders lineup because he does have a legit path to even 100+ points. He could knock out Brown with a body kick, but with GDR, the only way she's going to score highly is with a knockout, and I just don't see that happening.
So Jose Aldo's making the drop to bantamweight. He's taking on the number 1 contender, Marlon Moraes. A lot of talk about Aldo's weight cut. Now everything's on the line Saturday night. Who do you think gets it done?
See, this one, I was just telling you off air, this reminds me so much of that TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo fight. I was saying back then that if they were fighting at 135 pounds, I would have bet TJ Dillashaw, but all that weight he's cutting, I just felt like that was going to have a big effect on his brain and he wouldn't be able to take a shot. So I bet Cejudo, you bet Cejudo. So we cashed in there, but this is the same thing for me. If this fight was at 145 pounds, I'd probably be betting Aldo, especially at this line. But even at Pick'em, I think I might pick Aldo outright. But at 135, the way he's looking, I just don't think his chin can hold up. So I'm on Moraes here. I think Moraes is going to knock him out. I do want some Moraes lineups. It's going to be hard for me to afford when I'm going so heavy on Usman and Nunes. But I do want to make sure to get some exposure to Moraes here. With the way I'm building lineups, it's almost easier for me to just plug in Aldo as one of my underdogs and hope that his chin does hold up. So I'm sure I'm going to end up on a couple Aldo lineups, but I don't like it at all. I mean, I think he's going to end up with like maybe 5 points in this fight and get knocked out in the first round. Moraes maybe flirting with that 50K lineup, and Aldo maybe debating on retirement because he doesn't have a chin anymore and he's not sure what weight class he should be in. I just hate these kind of moves from fighters, so I'm fading the weight cut here. I'm going to take Moraes by knockout.
And last but not least, you got Petr Yan taking on Urijah Faber. Urijah Faber spoiled a lot of people's plans against Ricky Simón not too long ago. You think he makes it a second straight upset against the very talented Petr Yan?
Nah, I don't see that happening. I think Yan's just too good for him everywhere. I think Yan can beat him on the feet, beat him on the ground, and the only way that I see him losing is either by a knockout or a guillotine choke. If either one of those things happen, Faber can score highly from that, but I don't know how Faber wins a decision here. So you're fully playing the finish if you're trying to invest in Faber here. I don't think I'm going to be doing any of that. It's going to be Yan or pass mostly for me, but the problem is affording Yan at $9,400 when we got my Usman and Nunes on the card that I'm going to be targeting more of. So I don't see me getting to a whole lot of Yan. I'll try to throw him in a couple lineups if I can because I think he's live for the finish here. But I could also see like an 80-point decision victory from him where it's almost like a hard sparring match where he's not trying to kill Faber out there, but he's just doing enough to get the win. I mean, 80 to 85 points, that's not going to do it at his price tag. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in my head, trying to talk myself of staying away from this fight on the fights that I like more. But I could also see 120-plus points from him, maybe an end of the first-round finish. I don't know how he's going to get it done, but I'm pretty confident Ian does get it done, and it's going to be him or pass. The only problem's affording him at 9,400.
Well, Kyle, that's why you are the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. It's going down this Saturday in Las Vegas, Nevada, UFC 245. The fans can follow you at Big Marley 3. Your bets and your write-ups are available at bestfightpicks.com.
Yes, sir. Got a max bet going this week. Feel good about it. I just sent you my write-up, so that's good to go. It's almost 17,000 words this week. Hit on every single fight. I tell you kind of what I like from a betting breakdown, and then I hit on it for a DraftKings angle as well. I don't give any bets away in there, but I think it could help you out if you're looking as just a gambler, not a DraftKings player. I think it's worth the read, so check it out. It's only $8, and then cash that max bet ticket with me, guys. Let's get it.
So before we talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch, just got to remind you all to hit up our sponsor, Flav CBD, at flavcbd.com. Use that promo code BATTLE to save 10% off. Hit them up. It's December. I know y'all will really enjoy what they got. So flavcbd.com, use that promo code BATTLE to save 10%. And Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC 245?
My fight to watch is going to be the co-main event between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, when you watch Max Holloway fight, this guy throws down to a point. I mean, this guy will get in your face and throw punches and see what you're made of. And when you got a guy like Volkanovski, on the other hand, who's got that power and mixed in with the feints and the volume, I don't see how it doesn't shape out for a fight of the night type of fight. I think the winner of that fight's definitely getting a bonus, and that's my fight to watch.
Yeah, I mean, tell me who's not going to be watching that featherweight co-main event. But for me, my fight to watch is the prelim main event between Geoff Neal and Mike Perry. Remind me the last time you saw a boring Mike Perry or Geoff Neal fight, because you can't. I think these two are going to stand and bang until one man falls or until they both get 50K bonuses for fight of the night. So I'm going Geoff Neal versus Mike Perry to be the fight to watch. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC 245?
My fighter to watch is going to be Colby Covington. Look, whether you don't like the guy or not, the guy's been adding a lot of humor to this card, unlike a lot of other people. The guy's at least making an effort to do something. I mean, a lot of these guys are too nice, snooze fest and boring, man. At least the kid's doing something. He's making an effort. I like his fighting style as well. He's got a tough fight here against Kamaru Usman. And kind of my fighter to watch is both of them, because the winner of this fight might get a big fat payday against the Street King, my boy George Masvidal. I mean, that's on the horizons, and George is the biggest star in MMA right now. And if Colby wins, you already know they're about to, show all those clips of
them wrestling in the apartment,
and them being best buds and whatnot. And Usman and George have beef as well. So the winner of this fight's got a big payday on the horizons.
For sure. And my fighter to watch is Marlon Moraes. I think Marlon is poised to not just come out here and get a victory, but to defeat a former UFC champion, future Hall of Famer. And I feel like the UFC is positioning him in a spot where, hey, go out there and get the biggest win of your career in highlight reel fashion. This guy's cutting way too much weight. He's depleting himself to a point where I don't even know if he's going to recover the next day and perform. So I'm going Marlon Moraes to be the fighter to watch, and I think he's going to knock out the legendary Jose Aldo. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday, UFC 245. They can follow you at MMA Genius 05 or your Instagram, ShaqBFP. They can follow me at Best Fight Picks, our Instagram, Best Fight Picks Official. You can check out our bets at bestfightpicks.com. VIP, buy one, get one free, meaning you buy UFC 245. We got you on that UFC Korea card, which is coming up, Korean Zombie versus Frankie Edgar. Buy one, get one free, bestfightpicks.com. Make sure you subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, and all the places where we are available. We want to thank all our fans so much for all your support. We truly appreciate it.
Enjoy those fights.
Yes, sir. We will be back next week. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.